Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira has officially been announced for the UFC 317 card in International Fight Week, I think late June, as Islam Makhachev has decided to vacate his lightweight title to move up to welterweight to challenge Jack Della Maddalena for his title, which is kind of unfortunate. We had this big contender in Ilia Topuria who just came off of those great KOs against Volkanovski and Holloway, have this big super fight at lightweight only for Makhachev to really vacate and move up a division, which is really frustrating. I know Makhachev has been wanting to leave the division and go up to welterweight to maybe fight for a second title, but I seem like the UFC actually forced him to vacate. So that's another interesting situation in itself. But we did miss out on a little bit of a super fight because Jack Della Maddalena destroyed Bilal. But we still do have some nice fights on the table. We have JDM and Islam, which I think is a really good fight. And same thing is to be said with Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. And there is a lot of people, for some reason, that feel bad for Charles Oliveira, even though this is for a title. I really don't think Charles Oliveira really cares who he's fighting against as long as it is for the title. So I don't think it's really that big of a deal. A lot of people think Topuria is going to run through Charles Oliveira, which I think is very interesting as well. The betting line for Ilia Topuria is -400 favorite, which I think is absolutely insane. I get the bookies don't really want people betting on Ilia Topuria for this fight because a lot of people are going with him as the winner, so they just don't want any money to be made on him. But I feel like Charles Oliveira is being doubted in this fight, and I feel like there are ways that he can take advantage of Ilia Topuria in this fight, especially early on, and be able to find a win. So I'm going to be breaking down this matchup step by step, how they match up physically, how I think their strengths and weaknesses will match up against each other, and who I will officially pick for this one. It is an early prediction, but I'm just kind of getting ahead of schedule. So this will probably be like my official prediction come fight week, barring any other drama that happens. Because honestly, I was supposed to make this video yesterday. I was having a hard time recording it. But I guess Ilia Topuria left his camp, or not necessarily like his camp, but his two coaches left. So that could be an interesting factor coming into this fight. But just getting into this one, how they physically match up against each other. Charles Oliveira is 5'10", and Ilia Topuria is 5'7". Ilia Topuria, Ilia Topuria did fight Max Holloway, who is, I think, want to say 5'10", 5'11" himself. So the height difference won't be necessarily an issue for Ilia Topuria. However, the reach difference will be kind of big for Charles Oliveira here, and it is up a weight division as well. And we know Topuria has been building into it, but Charles Oliveira will have a 74-inch reach, and Ilia Topuria will have a 69-inch reach. Very different from the 69-inch reach that Max Holloway had. I believe Volkanovski has like a 71.5-inch reach or something like that. Very super long arms for his height, but Ilia Topuria has not fought a guy with a very big reach advantage over him in a very long time. You could say even Jai Herbert, which a lot of people will probably be looking at coming into this fight, as that was the last time Ilia Topuria got dropped, and the last time he fought at not welterweight, at lightweight either. So very interesting coming into this fight. Charles Oliveira will have a 5-inch reach advantage. I believe Jai Herbert had a 77-inch reach advantage for those wondering. But coming into this fight, I think the length early on will be able to help Charles Oliveira, especially against Topuria, who I think is very much a slow starter, not like a super slow starter where he basically throws nothing. Like you saw against Holloway, he was throwing with quite a bit of output, normally more than what we've seen against like a Volkanovski or even in the Emmett fight where he's a little bit slower starting. He does make his reads, and he does make a lot of mistakes in the first round. I noticed it felt like he was having a hard time reading Holloway very early in that fight. So especially with the range, Holloway is much quicker and does throw a lot more output than a Charles Oliveira, but Holloway was kind of just standing there in the pocket and doing a good job at jabbing Ilia Topuria's head off. Did a nice job with the teeps, did a nice job with the leg kicks early on, and I believe he was using an oblique kick also for that lead leg of Topuria, which he stands very heavy on. And I did mention that before the Volkanovski fight too, where I said Volkanovski's going to have all day to tap at the leg of Ilia Topuria in their fight, and which he did do. He stayed on the outside, used his jab, did a really good job staying on the outside as well until he got KO'd. But those are big factors that I think Charles Oliveira can take advantage of against a guy like Ilia Topuria, who again, like I said, does make mistakes early on. I'm going to break down a little bit of the Jai Herbert fight where I think Charles Oliveira can kind of mimic what he did, not exactly to a T, because Jai Herbert, he's a very good striker and he's super athletic. Like even in that fight, like he was shifting around quite a bit. He's moving laterally a lot. I don't think Charles Oliveira will do that. He doesn't move laterally too much. He does keep a nice range. He does have a higher guard. He is pretty quick. Is it pretty explosive as well? But I won't say it's like Jai Herbert where he's going to throw tons of combinations. Like Charles Oliveira definitely chooses his shots on the feet. So I think that's going to be very interesting as well. But I'm going to break down Ilia Topuria's style real quick, because Charles Oliveira, we know he likes to throw a lot of teeps. He'll go after the legs, sorry. And then in the pocket, he does like to stay in the pocket, and he does do a good job with the straight shots on the feet. And the one thing we can say about Charles Oliveira is he's very wild. He'll throw jump knees, big teeps up the middle. Like he'll throw everything in the first round from what we've seen in his title reign. The Beneil Dariush fight went crazy in that one as well. His last two fights, he has been a little bit more tame on the feet, which I think he's going to have to stay away from in this fight, because I think his winning point is early on against Topuria. But I feel like there's many opportunities that Charles Oliveira can take advantage of. And now I'm going to move over to this other screen. We have upgraded to Google Photos, where I can show you a little bit of what we're looking at. So Ilia Topuria, Again, stands very heavy on his lead leg right here, as you can see. It is like his boxing stance, but he does a lot of this. A lot of it is just feinting the takedown, which you can see Jai Herbert kind of react to and step back. But he also does it to kind of move his opponent backwards. And if you notice in all of Ilia Topuria's fights, he likes to stay in the center. The second he's on his back foot, he gets really uncomfortable and will likely like throw a shot to kind of back up his opponent a little bit. But not only does he do this to feint a takedown, but it also helps with pushing his opponent back. And what happens when you push your opponent back, you give him kind of two options. And standing in the pocket with Ilia is very dangerous, and he knows that. And so does his opponent. So his opponent will look to laterally move and stay out of the way so he doesn't get blocked up against the fence. Similar to like Pereira against like Izzy, kind of shorten off the distance a little bit, push him up against the fence, and then choose him to go one way. And that's kind of how he KO'd Max. Like Max was looking to move laterally to the right. Ilia Topuria kind of stepped in the way, forced him to move out the other way, and landed I believe it was a right hook. No, it was a left hook, I want to say. And he put out Max Holloway. So that's what he likes to do. He likes to push his opponents on the outside. He will even shoot up against the fence that way as well. So he does feint takedowns a lot. He doesn't really lunge like this like he used to. This is the Jai Herbert fight, of course. And you can see like the big height difference. And I will say, early on especially, Charles Oliveira will have all day to get at this leg of Ilia Topuria. I know he's lunged down, but if you just want to look at the stance of Ilia Topuria, this is a stance. Like he's very much heavy on that lead leg. I feel like Charles Oliveira will have all day to take out that leg, kind of like what Volkanovski did. Ilia Topuria throws a lot of his own leg kicks too. The one thing you'll see with Charles Oliveira is that he does like to stand in the pocket as well. Weirdly enough, he's very hittable also, which is not very good for this fight. Like it's most of this is Charles Oliveira will be looking to take the center, and so will Topuria. If Charles can kind of impose himself on Ilia to back him up, he's gonna have all the success in the world. But Ilia will lunge like this a lot to push his opponent back. And what happened in this fight is a lot of people will talk about that head kick that Jai Herbert landed. And this is after the head kick. I believe it's 24 seconds left in the round. After Ilia got stunned, got back up to his feet. I believe he took down Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert got back up to his feet. They were back in the center of the octagon. And Ilia Topuria, again, lunging, looking to feint a takedown. And Jai Herbert times it perfectly within the end. And that's something similar that you'll see from Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira will clinch to look for a takedown or at least pull guard, which I don't think is smart against Topuria. I think Topuria is too safe in the grappling. I don't think he's going to be able to submit Topuria from those positions. But you'll see something like this from Charles for sure. Like he throws a lot of knees. He'll throw a lot of teeps. If you watch the Max Holloway fight, Max Holloway was throwing some nice teeps out the middle, which I thought did a good job at keeping Ilia Topuria at bay. Because what would happen is Ilia Topuria would back up and it would force him to take a step back, and it would force him to be uncomfortable and not allow him to go forward and push Max back up to the fence. So I would have liked to see that a little bit more from Max in that fight, but he didn't end up doing it. So that's where I think Charles Oliveira can take advantage of an Ilia Topuria, where you can overwhelm him. And again, this is after the head kick that Jai Herbert landed on Topuria. Overwhelm Topuria, force him to make a mistake. This isn't the first time Ilia Topuria has been head kicked. I'm sure you can find it on Twitter at some point on his regional scene. I think there's 2 other times that he got head kicked. I think it was at 135 when he was fighting there. I think he missed weight for one of the fights as well, where he gets head kicked, and once he gets head kicked, he recovers pretty well and then knocks out his opponent. And he did the same thing against Jai Herbert. He has an insane recovery, especially for 145 or this was 155, but even at 135, he had good recovery. His chin is very good. He'll get dropped, but he'll recover pretty well. If you can overwhelm Ilia Topuria and force him to make mistakes, there are openings in his game. And I think out of the lunging position, you'll see him throw like an overhand or, again, look for takedowns, or he can dive right into a knee. There are openings for Ilia Topuria, and I think it will have to happen in the first round because I feel like he's too polished. Once he kind of gets in that flow state, it's kind of over for you. I will say, like Max Holloway, again, had a lot of success early. Volkanovski had a lot of success early. Those are elite strikers, of course. But I think Ilia takes a while to get warmed up in his fights, and he was eventually able to move side to side and avoid some of those jabs of Max Holloway, and he was able to land counters on Max, push him up against the fence, and land combinations up against there, and eventually found the chin of Max Holloway. So what I'm saying is basically Charles Oliveira needs to go out there and turn it up like he was when he was champion. Like go out there, take punches. If he gets dropped, it's fine. Get back to your feet and do the same thing that he was doing. Just be wild. Go out there and be crazy against Topuria, because the likelihood of Topuria making a mistake, I think, is a lot higher than in the second or third round, where Topuria is a lot more comfortable in the fight. And I think the teeps will keep him at bay. He'll force him to take a step back and not put the pressure on Charles Oliveira in this fight. So for my official prediction, after breaking down all that, how these guys, their strengths and weaknesses, how I see Charles Oliveira potentially winning this fight, I do think Ilia Topuria will win. After all that, I do think Ilia Topuria wins. He just has way too much power. His recovery, again, like I mentioned, is really good. I am worried about the coaching situation. Why he decided to step away from his coaches is a little bit confusing, especially since he's moving up and changing weight divisions, and they've been with him for a very long time now. I don't know if his camps necessarily changed. Like, I don't know how much has changed for Ilia Topuria, so that is a little bit worrying coming into this fight. But Ilia Topuria, you saw that clip of him like sprinting down on like the track that he was sprinting down, and he is pretty stocky. He definitely has built in some nice muscle for the division. I think his power will translate. There has been questions about that. I do think even if Charles Oliveira gives him his best, I don't think Ilia Topuria. I think Ilia Topuria is durable enough to take whatever Charles Oliveira can give him, whether it's a knee, whether it's like a 1-2 down the pipe, and he drops Ilia Topuria, and Topuria has to shoot on a single leg, and maybe Charles Oliveira flips over to his back. Like a stockier Ilia Topuria, I think will do a good job against a longer fighter like Charles Oliveira, where he'll do a good job at not getting submitted. So I don't see him getting necessarily finished in any way, which is, I think, is the only way that Oliveira can win this one, especially early on. I feel like there's a pretty small window for Charles Oliveira to win this fight. So I just like Ilia Topuria kind of in the first round. I don't want to say surviving, but I think he can handle the pressure of Charles Oliveira, kind of stay in the pocket where he's very comfortable at. And I do think that is a pretty key factor in this one, is Charles Oliveira is going to keep his foot on the gas, and he's not going to take a step back in this fight. He never really does. And it'll be very interesting to see what Topuria does here, because I think if Charles Oliveira tries to take the center, throws teeps and kind of keeps Ilia Topuria off his game and forces him to step back, I think Charles Oliveira will have ample opportunity to land a pretty nice strike on Ilia Topuria and maybe potentially hurt him and hop on him club and sub, try to do something like that. But I do really like Ilia in this fight. Super durable, build up into this division. There's no worries, in my opinion, of him not being strong enough or not having the power that would translate from 145 to 155. There's no worry in my mind with that. I believe he's like 185, 190 is what he said, I think, on JRE. I might be wrong, but he's definitely built into this division. And just being a stockier guy, I know it's only 69 inches of reach, but being a stockier guy, it is going to be a lot easier to land takedowns on Charles Oliveira. So maybe Topuria will do like he did against Max and land a takedown there to kind of just get Charles Oliveira thinking about it a little bit. And Charles Oliveira is going to be comfortable on his back, but I think Topuria is just way too strong. He has a lot of power on his hands. I think he's good enough grappling wise to not get submitted in those positions. So I like Topuria there. I don't think he's going to win specifically in those areas. Like I don't think he's going to sub Charles. I don't think he's going to, he could maybe ground and pound Charles, but again, Charles is so dangerous off his back. Like you saw that Beneil Dariush fight where he's kind of just posturing up with his legs and was like doing crazy shit off his back just to get back up to his feet. Like that's insane grappling. Like Beneil Dariush is no joke in the grappling, and Charles Oliveira was making it very tough for him in that area. So I don't have any issues with Oliveira off his back with potentially Topuria KOing him on the ground. I just don't see that happening. I think it comes down to it being on the feet. Ilia Topuria will be put on his back foot early on. Charles Oliveira is going to put the pressure on. I just don't think that a 36-year-old Charles Oliveira is going to be able to hang in there. And I don't think this negatively of Charles Oliveira. I really still like Charles Oliveira, and I am kind of defending him a little bit because people are kind of shitting all over him. I think Ilia Topuria can weather the storm of Charles Oliveira very early on. People are going to be surprised early because they just think Ilia Topuria is going to run straight through Charles, but he's going to have some difficulty early on. I just think Ilia Topuria won't get finished. Will weather the storm of Oliveira, won't get submitted or anything like that. And I think maybe late first round where he starts to get a little bit more comfortable, or the second round where he starts to get a little bit more comfortable, maybe he'll shoot in a takedown, kind of force Oliveira to get back up to the fence, and he can kind of close it off that way. And again, it is going to be very hard to land on Oliveira because he does like to fight in the pocket. He does like to take the center. Like with Chandler, it's a little bit different because Chandler likes to move around quite a bit, but Ilia Topuria is very methodical, very slow. Like he likes to pick his shots for sure. He'll stalk his opponent down. He'll throw a lot of feints and everything like that. So it's going to be a slower pace for Charles Oliveira. So he'll be throwing quite a bit, but the second Ilia Topuria is able to back Charles up against the fence, he'll land that big shot. And in all honesty, I think Charles has gotten hit a lot in his career. I think this will be the first time we see Charles out for sure. Like I think he gets hit, maybe a couple follow-ups, and I think Charles Oliveira goes out in this one. I don't think it's like a TKO. I think he gets knocked out in the second round. So that's my prediction for this fight. Again, Charles Oliveira will give him a lot in that first round. Ilia might struggle, but I think he's durable enough to prevail past that. Maybe in the late first round, he'll land a big shot on Charles and kind of get his attention a little bit and maybe force in a couple of takedowns. But I think in the second round, I think Ilia Topuria is going to be able to find that big shot, kind of stock Charles down and get that big finish. So let me know who you guys have in this matchup. Who are you guys picking in this one? And I'll see you guys next time.